So for any of you keen beans who have got older horses, I've got this lovely old horse, Woody, who my daughter show jumps, and I'm having great fun teaching him to go reinless. So the whole thing about my training is I want the horse on my side. So I'm doing all this, no equipment at all. I'm not going to start with a bridle. He is ridden, so I know that I'm not going to get bucked off, or rather I hope I'm not. So I'm calling him out of the stable, and as you can see, he is eating the food now, and you know that's quite difficult. There's some nuts on the ground and he's eating the nuts on the ground, but I'm going to call him over to me, and is he going to come to me rather than stay with the food? And as you can see, he has decided to come and say hello to me, and I'll start the training. So that's the real fundamental thing about the training. Although I'm using food as a motivator, even though he's eating the same value food, he wants to come and train with me. So that's a great start. So I'm starting off somewhere safe. So I'm very lucky I've got a bit of an indoor barn next to the other horses. Number one, does your horse feel safe when you train him? So he feels safe enough for me to play around on him and see what he's up to. So we're rewarding him when he's getting it right. Lots of rubs and strokes, and just want a happy horse. And then I'm leaning over, I'm using a bit of outside leg to make him move. I will mark that behaviour, and as you can see, my legs are now coming off him. I'll lower my breath for him to whoa. And bit by bit, as I get braver, I'm beginning to bring him into new surroundings. So now I'm in a round pen. I'm lucky because I've got loads of facilities, so totally understand those of you with less facilities, but there's always a way. So everyone always goes, oh, but I haven't got facilities. Well, I'll show as we go on. You don't have to have facilities the whole time. It's just, I've got them. And as you can see here, he's really listening to me. He's really beginning to enjoy the training. But going on to this bit of the video, which is a bit hilarious, is where it's all coming unstuck. So I've taken him to a field he's never been in before, a long way away from his friends, and I can't do a thing with him. I can't stop him, I can't turn him. That's why I've got my neck strap on to try and help me have some control if something goes wrong. I don't want to use my neck strap. I'm only using it here because I've got no other option. But I'm trying to turn, I'm using my body, I've got my hand on his neck, I'm saying, come on Woody, I really want to turn, and he's going, no, actually, I don't want to turn. And it's because of his threshold. So you can see from this video on here, we've got this horse which is bucking and kicking because he's over threshold. Now he's over threshold because he's got a pain issue, but Woody's over threshold because he's too far away from his friends. So we've got all different reasons for horses to go over threshold. They might be going over threshold because they don't like the bit in their mouth. It's making them worried, and then they start running through the bit. So the whole thing about this training and me training my horses loose without any equipment is I'm trying to find their thresholds. So when I talk about threshold, being over threshold and under threshold, I'm talking about anxiety. So if they're over threshold, it means that their anxieties come in and their training isn't going to be so easy. If they're under threshold, it means they're feeling relaxed and therefore they've got time, they've got room in their brain to listen to you. So I've decided to move from the end of the field back closer to the barn. And there's some horses in the field, the other side of the hedge. So he's now going under threshold. He's now getting enough room in his brain to think about me, because he's not saying, oh, where are my friends? Because, long and the short of it is horses are herd animals. Now, he's 16 years old. And if I had a bridle on, I'd probably hardly even notice that he was over threshold, because he'd understand that he's got the bridle on and he's got to behave himself. And I've got nothing against being, people riding with bridles. I've got nothing against pressure and release if done properly when you ride. And that's how, how I do ride, how I lead them. But if you back this up with positive reinforcement, you're going to have a very different feeling. The horse is going to feel differently about the training. So I've come back here and I'm just sort of playing around with, I've got the neck strap on at the moment, which I'm not using. I do take it off in a second, and you can see he's really listening, and he's listening because he wants the food. He is aware that when he gets something right, he'll get rewarded for it. But don't panic. You don't have to feed them for the rest of their lives. although when you do feed for a behaviour, you are going to increase that behaviour. So our older horses, if we're working them and they do something right, we will stop and, tell them well done. We won't just release the pressure and give them a rub on the neck. We'll release the pressure, give them the rub on the neck, and also give them some food, because that genuinely makes them feel good and try harder. So then I've just taken the neck strap off, and I do that because I really want people to understand how intelligent horses are and how much our body makes such a difference to them. And I'm not, I don't have a brilliant position. I'm not a brilliant rider. But if you, if you're riding with no kit, your bum bones make a difference to them. There you can see he's almost doing turn on the haunches to come round. And he's only had, I think by here, about 2 hours training to going without a bridle over a course of quite a few days. But he is, when he's listening to me, when he's under threshold and he's thinking, oh, what can I do to get my nut? You hardly need to do anything. So here in the corner we've got Sam, who was the bucking one earlier, and it's just him showing him when he's under threshold. I took his equipment off. We think it was his saddle that was causing trouble and making him buck. I've taken the bridle off, and now he can tolerate going around because he's under threshold. He was over threshold due to pain. Woody was over threshold because he was too far away from his friends. Your horse could be over threshold because they're worried about the bit and they run through the bit because they're scared and they don't quite understand it. I mean, any problem you've got with your horse, it is going to have a threshold situation going on. So it's probably going to be over threshold. So if you're having a problem training, I would think, right, how can I alleviate his anxiety so he's got room in his brain to think? So I actually this is me going away from home again because I wanted Eloise to video him coming through here, and she missed it. So I turned around and went back into the field, which he was very happy to do. Without his bridle, I didn't use the neck strap at all. I've just got it back on just because we're going on the road and just in case something silly happened. And you could see there I was pointing my finger on his neck, and that is what was steering him. And I stop him and I say, well done. And I give him his reward, and I've marked what I like. So I do mark what I like with a sound, and then I'm going off down the road and he's very relaxed, as you can see, very happy. I'm going to then ask him to move in. I thought I'd better just see, how much steering I've got in case a car came. And so I'm moving him in. And I know everyone can say, oh, it's so dangerous, you're, riding your horse and there could be a car. We're lucky enough to live on a really quiet road. Very rarely does a car come. And if they do, they're only driving about 10 miles an hour. So it's fairly sensible. And he couldn't quite stop then because he was a little bit like, oh, I want to go home. So I didn't quite have the control there to stop him dead. He stopped for a moment and then walked on. But that's a threshold thing. He walked on because he was thinking, I want to go home. And then this is going home. But now I'm practicing, can I stop? And I haven't used the neck strap again. But I think because he can now see the barn, he's feeling more relaxed again. So he's now listening and I can stop him on the breath. And I'm still rewarding him. So, yeah, I'm sure people who aren't used to training with food, they'll see this and they'll think, oh, God, she's just giving him food the whole time. And, it's quite difficult to sort of see the way forward. Remember, we're in the first 2 hours of training. So if you see him, I hope to do another video of him, say, in a few months' time, to see where we're at, because I think it would be fun to sort of move him on and see where we get to. And what's really nice about this horse and the bit of training we've done is this is us going back away from the barn and towards the school. And what's quite nice is he looks quite happy. So hopefully that means that he quite enjoys, the work he does in the school and things. And then I thought we'd just see what he thinks of the water. So Eloise has walked him through the water. He was actually an event horse and a show jumper. So he's done all this sort of stuff. But I've taken the kit off. He might say, I can jump a water jump when I've got a bridle on, but I don't fancy it without one. But he doesn't. He says, that's fine. Quite happy to do water. So that's really nice. And then I say, God, well done, Woody. I'm going to finish that session. I'm not going to ask any more. I keep my sessions really short. That's probably about the longest session I'd ever done with him. I 10 minutes. I get on and I just do 10 minutes. He's just he's not one of my training horses. I don't earn any money when I ride him, so I don't spend loads of time with him. And there's just showing how good he is at the turning. You know, he could do a little bit of a slalom quite happily. And then this is going to be the second time I've cantered him under saddle. I haven't really shown much trot because I bounce around so much. I don't think it's actually very good, me trotting him. So I'm going to just do work in walk and canter. So that's the second ever strike off I've done with no bridle on. I've taken off my neck strap just to really show that I'm not using a neck strap in any way. And he does tend to drift off the edge of the school a bit, and I think that's because of me. I think I'm using my inside leg too much, and so my left pelvis is pushing into his spine, and I think he's moving away from that, which means that he's bending to the left and slightly drifting. So it's really teaching me a lot about how I'm sitting on him, because he's so responsive to my weight that if I'm sitting a bit funny, he then, moves accordingly. But that's the third strike off, and that was just super. He was very attentive there, and then I bounce around a bit. So I'm trying to teach him canter to walk, walk to canter, and let's not do any trotting because of me bobbling around like a great big bobbler. And then again, this session was probably only about 4 or 5 minutes. I just popped on him when I had a moment. And then I just thought I'd give you a little clip of my daughter, Eloise, and this was her first ever competition on him, and just showing that he's just a fun all-round horse. He was really quite good in his day, and he's having a slightly slower life now. And just quite a fun thing to do if you've got a lovely horse that's quiet. And I do it with my problem horses as well, because it makes you really work on their threshold and really train them under threshold. When you start taking their bridle off, then you don't, you never put more pressure on them than you feel brave enough to do. So it just means that the horse is having a better time being trained, in my opinion. Got this far, well done you. I am running online courses, which is me live, so it's not a pre-recorded course. If you look in the descriptions below, register to my website, then you can join our tribe.